All right. Is this working? I hope so. Welcome back to the Draft Podcast, part of the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Paul Adamczak. I want to thank you for joining in once again. Quick programming note. This has been a truly fun experience thus far. I haven't dove this deep into a draft class in a couple of years. It's been a bit of a challenge, but it's been a lot of fun. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. And really, I hope to convey and impart some of the information that I've been able to glean scouting all these players through this medium for you guys. So last week, we talked about the offensive line. Today, we're putting the big guys on the back burner, focusing on the ones they clear the path for, the running backs. This is episode 5. We're going to call it 3 yards in a cloud of dust. All right. So after giving the offensive linemen their well-earned shine last week, I feel it's right to talk about the guys who make those blocks count. The playmakers, the bruisers, the human highlight reels. But before I get into the actual draft class, I feel it's a necessary thing that we have to have the running backs don't matter debate versus their real impact on game day. If you're part of the analytics crowd, if you haven't been hiding under a rock the last couple of years, you've probably heard the phrase, running backs don't matter. And the argument goes something like this. NFL teams should never spend high draft capital or big contracts on running backs. Running backs have a short shelf life due to the physical toll of the position, meaning teams often get a peak production on their rookie contract and then see rapid decline by the time that second contract comes around 5 or 6 years into their time in the league. And then finally, elite running backs don't significantly improve team success compared to quarterbacks, offensive linemen, or even wide receivers. So listen, some of that is truth. And over the past 10 years, the league has certainly devalued the position in both free agency and the draft. From 2014 to 2024, so 10 years, only 14 running backs were taken in the first round, including 0 last year, 2024. But here's the reality, folks. Running backs still matter, just in different ways. Now, before I get into the whole thing, we know Saquon Barkley. That's the gold standard. Saquon Barkley's don't grow on trees. So let's kind of set him aside. We use the term generational talent a lot for a lot of different things. That's a generational talent. All right, so that's a rubric for that. So nobody really else comes close. So let's just put him aside. He's in a category of his own. While the top-down analytics say running backs are interchangeable, teams that don't have one find out real quick how much they actually do matter. Teams like the 49ers, they didn't blink. They traded multiple picks for Christian McCaffrey, and suddenly that offense under Kyle Shanahan went from pretty good to elite. I mean, they had a rough year this year, but Christian McCaffrey missed a lot of time. Another great example, the Tennessee Titans. They built their entire identity around Derrick Henry. Those guys made an AFC championship game with Ryan freaking Tannehill at quarterback. Now they're picking first overall. All right, 1 year after they got rid of Henry. Even teams with elite quarterbacks like the Chiefs, they need a dynamic running back. Isaiah Pacheco had a rough Super Bowl, but they need dynamic running backs to keep defenses honest. So the truth is running backs still impact offenses in major ways, but the way teams value them has changed. It's no longer about finding a 25 carry a game bell cow. Teams want backs with a bevy of talents to stay on the field in all situations. That's why you get running back by committee more often than not anymore. Scheme fit is everything nowadays. A one-cut runner like Raheem Morris thrives in his own scheme, or as a power back like Nick Chubb is perfect for a downhill kind of gap scheme. Elite running backs can certainly still elevate an offense. I know. But they simply can't carry a bad team anymore. Gone are the days of handing off to Emmitt Smith 30 times a game and riding him to a championship. Once again, Saquon Barkley's don't grow on trees. They're grown in labs somewhere outside of State College, Pennsylvania. So do running backs still matter? Yeah, duh. But how much they matter depends on the situation that they're in. The right back in the right scheme can be a game changer. The wrong back in the wrong offense just another guy burning through carries who probably won't even be on the roster next season. Those are wasted reps. We try to avoid those as much as possible. So that's what makes this 2025 running back class so interesting. I don't see any Hall of Famers in there, but there are some guys in this group who could be impact players, but it's going to take the right fit, the right usage, and the right team to then make them work. All right, one more segment before we get into the actual running backs. So how do we scout them? What are we looking for? The question is, what does an NFL running back look like today? So as we've said, the running back itself, the position has evolved. Today's offenses need dynamic weapons who can create explosive plays, break tackles. They need to make smart reads, and this is the big one, contribute on passing downs. That's not just as a receiver. It's also pass protection as well. So I broke this down into essentially, I think I have 4 traits. I have 4 traits here. Trait number 1, things that we're looking for: explosiveness, the home run threat, if you will. The days of grinding out 3 yards in a cloud of dust are gone. But the best backs today can turn a small crease into a chunk play and a gap into a game-breaking run. That means burst, acceleration, top-end speed. They all matter. We need to see it. There is a prerequisite before you get into the league. Think Devon Achane. Think instant electricity that he brings to Miami's offense. If you hesitate as a defender, he's already gone. So explosiveness, first thing you look for in a running back. Second, contact balance. I call this the art of breaking tackles. Nobody better than Nick Chubb. He is the gold standard. Low center of gravity, thick frame, absurd lower body power that make him impossible to arm tackle. Contact balance, as a running back, you can't just go down on first contact anymore. You have to be able to absorb hits, keep your feet, and turn those potential losses into positive yards, especially if you're a team with a bad offensive line. You tend to get hit 2, 3, 4 yards in the backfield. It takes a special kind of athlete just to make it back to the line of scrimmage sometimes. So I watched a lot of Dolphins football, man. I've seen some of the most athletic stuff I've ever seen takes place on a gain of 0. Just sometimes getting back to the line of scrimmage is an incredible feat. Third thing, vision and patience. I put this together. This is a back's ability to read blocks and find lanes. At this level, guys can't just be athletic anymore. You have to be able to process the game at a high level, set up your blocks, make decisive cuts. If a back can't anticipate where the opening will be, they're going to struggle, no matter how physically gifted they are. A good example of this, a great example of this, if I do say so myself, Le'Veon Bell. Guy known for legendary patience, waiting behind the blocker, exploding through a hole that's just about to open. So good at that. Such a rare thing to be able to do at his level. Patience and vision, huge when scouting running backs. Fourth and final, and I would say this is the newest one, the new age back: pass protection, receiving ability. This is really the biggest difference when you hear the 3-down back, right? A true 3-down back. The difference between a 3-down back and just a rotational piece. If you can't protect your quarterback or contribute as a receiver, you're coming off the field, especially on 3rd down, bar none. Austin Eckler, masterclass in pass catching running backs. Runs routes like a receiver, forces mismatches with linebackers and safeties. Linebackers too slow, safeties too small. So there's kind of that, we're looking to find mismatches as an offensive play caller. And then I think of a guy like Tank Bigsby, played more snaps than former first round pick Travis Etienne in Jacksonville, particularly because of his presence on passing downs. Etienne's a talented runner, but he can't pass protect. He's gotten better, but Tank Bigsby has done a really nice job of that, able to take some reps away. So now that we know what it takes: explosiveness, contact balance, vision and patience, pass protection, and receiving ability. Here is my pre-combine. Do I have a little asterisk thing over here? Nothing, no asterisk. Pre-combine top 7. Running backs, the 40 time is more or less, it's not super important. You're just looking to see on game day, okay, that's about what we're looking at. You just want it to follow up what you see on film. I am interested in the 3-cone drill. I'm interested in the short shuttle. And I do want to see what the the bench presses. How many reps at 225 can they put up? Strength is important. So my pre-combine top 7, and I am ranking them in order this week. I did quarterbacks. I did it sort of a pretty good list in order. Offensive linemen, man, I just threw them out there because I think there's tiers this year. But here's my in order pre-combine top 7 running backs 2025. And we start off, probably no surprise to anyone who watched any college football this year, Ashton Jeanty, the junior from Boise State, 5'8", 217 pounds. He played 14 games this year. He ran for 2,601 yards at an average of 7 yards per carry. He scored 29 touchdowns rushing. As a receiver, he caught 23 passes for 138 yards and 1 touchdown. Strengths as a running back, as I see him going, transitioning to the NFL game, compact, powerful frame with elite contact balance. He is not an easy guy to bring down. You can't arm tackle him. Natural hands, playmaking ability in the pass game. I think he's a little bit better at it than what Boise State asked him to do. He is certainly an explosive one-cut runner. He's going to thrive in a zone-based scheme, able to absorb contact. He does a great job of keeping his legs churning for extra yards. I'll be honest, I watched about 2.5 Boise State games, and I watched the Penn State game against him 3 times. He grew on me every time I watched that game back. He 33 carries for like 101 yards. He wasn't spectacular, but there were a number of plays against a really, really good run-stopping defense that he just impresses you with how he keeps his legs going, how good linebackers just square him up and give him a good shot, and it's oftentimes not enough. And he's a guy who I would describe as a workhorse mentality. He tends to get stronger as the game goes on, especially in that Penn State game. He was better in the second half than he was in the first. Weaknesses as a prospect, like I said, this isn't a generational guy. Limited height makes pass protection an uphill battle. You know, if you got a 6'7" defensive end, again, he's 5'8". That's tough. It's a leverage-based game, but sometimes it just, you too little. Sit down. I mentioned he's going to be a zone guy. He is less decisive in gap scheme concepts. He's occasionally too hesitant setting up defenders in space. It's sort of a mindset thing. You can see how his brain moves. He's going to be a good runner. So the overall evaluation, Jeanty is my #1 running back in this year's class. He's a bowling ball of a back. Think Maurice Jones-Drew with even better elusiveness. Able to run through contact, racks up yards after the catch, consistently moves the chains. While his top-end speed isn't eye-popping, his strength, quickness, and vision more than make up for it. Jeanty is a day-1 difference maker, and I project him to be a first-round pick. I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier today. I think he's going to go 15 to 25. At least that's where I would peg him. I don't think he's a top 10 running back. If he goes 10 to 15, I'd say, okay. 15 to 25, I'd say you made a good pick. Jeanty, #1. #2, Omarion Hampton, junior out of North Carolina, 6 foot, 220 pounds, played 12 games this year, ran for 1,660 yards, just under 6 yards per carry, scored 15 touchdowns on the ground, caught 38 passes for 373 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's good production out of the backfield for a running back. Strengths for Hampton, prototypical build, excellent weight distribution. He looks like an NFL running back. Physical, downhill runner, punishes defenders. He's mean. Elite elite lower body power to drive through contact and finish runs. Willing and effective pass blocker. This is a guy who loves contact. He's a guy who's not going to run out of bounds. He's looking to deliver a shot. If you're going to tackle me, I'm going to tackle you right back. But we're both going down. Showcases natural hands and solid after the catch ability. Something about running backs, going back to high school, obviously, but even before that, Pee Wee leagues, the best athletes tend to matriculate to the running back position. That's because that's where coaches want to put their best athletes. Let's give our best athlete the ball as many times as we can. It's not that complicated. And the easiest way to get it to him is just to snap the ball and hand it to him. So the after the catch, if you can throw it to him in space, running backs tend to be good after the catch. And this is a guy who's able to find space and then catch the ball very naturally, very soft hands. Weaknesses: sometimes lacks patience behind blockers. This is a guy who just wants to go. Can be overly eager to get upfield. The hole wasn't there. It was supposed to be there. It never really opened. I'm going to try it anyway. Not a whole lot of patience. You can build that. You can coach that. Isn't really coming in with a great asset there. He does lack top end breakaway speed. Doesn't always hit the home run. For Ricky Williams was the one who I learned this off. He was a big back. He was powerful in space. He had what I called the sixth gear. That was the runaway gear. He could run through guys, but it's once you get in some space, you got to be able to hit that sixth gear and run away. Hampton hasn't really showed that. Not the most elusive or creative in space as a weakness. Again, he's more of a downhill, punish you as much as you're going to try to punish me runner. My overall evaluation: no nonsense, downhill bruiser, grinds out tough yards and wears down defenses. Thrives on contact. We love that at the NFL level. Breaks tackles at a super high rate and finishes every run with authority. While he doesn't have the elite long speed, he's quick enough to make defenders miss and has the vision to consistently find positive gains. Reliable receiver, strong pass protector. Hampton is built for a 3-down workload in the NFL, and my projected pick round would be a second or third round pick. That's kind of the golden age where you see a lot of running backs drafted today. My comparison is Josh Jacobs. He reminds me a lot of Josh Jacobs. Maybe not quite as fast as Josh Jacobs, but sort of the back and forth bowling ball style of runner you see out of the former Alabama running back. And I will say, if it weren't for Jeanty having the season that he had, Hampton would have probably been the number one back in this class. So I went with Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina second. Jeanty first, Hampton second. Number 3, pre-combine running backs, Kaleb Johnson. Another junior, this one out of Iowa. Prototypical size, 6'1", 225, 1,500 yards this past year, 6.4 yards per carry. Scored 21 touchdowns on the ground. Receiving game, a little lax, 22 catches, 188 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Could use a little work there. Strengths: this is a powerful north-south runner with a workhorse frame. This, again, looks the part. Impressive burst and top-end speed for a guy who weighs 225 pounds. Outstanding vision, especially in zone blocking schemes. Guy who can shrug off arm tackles, racks up yards after contact, and a guy we'd say is smart with efficient movement, constantly cutting to find space. A vision guy who's like always looking for a little bit more. We love that. Weaknesses: I said it a little bit ago. Limited receiving experience, mostly a non-factor in the receiving game, in the passing game. So maybe not a true 3-down back. Can get too eager to hit the hole sometimes, occasionally running through blocks. This is a guy who lacks patience, we'll say. And he can run uptight at times, especially when the play structure breaks down. He's in the thing, and then the block didn't get held. Now he kind of stands up to kind of deer in headlights. They're down looking, and then kind of looks around. Kaleb Johnson, I really like him. He's going to be a committee back, I would say, but his 2024 season wasn't a fluke. He's big, fast, decisive, fits best in an outside zone scheme. Combination of power, patience, and burst gives him 3-down upside, though his receiving game does need polish. If he lands behind a strong offensive line, I could see this guy as an immediate impact starter. Another guy I project to go second or third round. And my comp for him, even after only like one season, Arian Foster. Everybody remember Arian Foster? Had a couple of good years for the Texans. So those are my top 3. I'm doing 7. We get to the point now where I think this is probably the most controversial I've been up to this point. And that's because I'm talking the Ohio State running backs. There's more than one. We've known for a while that they were both NFL prospects. Who's better than the other? Who should have gotten more carries? Who was taking carries away from who? So my number 4 back out of Ohio State, another junior. This is a better pro prospect. Quinshon Judkins, 6 foot, 220 pounds. Carried the ball 194 times last year, just over 1,000 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, 14 touchdowns. Another guy, limited receiving ability, only 22 catches for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. But this is a violent, physical, downhill NFL runner. Generates missed tackles, consistently falls forward after contact. Strong one-cut ability with enough burst to break into the second level in the NFL. Good balance and power, which makes him effective in short yardage situations. One of the reasons I liked him over Travion Henderson is, and you kind of saw it if you kind of look at play calling, when they got to the red zone, when Ohio State's inside the 10, inside the 5, they would pull Henderson and put in Judkins, because nose for the end zone is something I put in the strengths as well. Also, he has experience in multiple systems, proving he can adapt 2 different schemes. That was big. He was good at Ole Miss. He didn't exactly put up the same numbers at Ohio State as he did at Ole Miss. He wasn't the number one guy. He wasn't the only guy. But he did show an ability to be productive in multiple offenses. Weaknesses, he does lack top-end agility, relying certainly more on power than elusiveness. Not overly dynamic in space. He can get caught in the backfield when the play breaks down. More of a complementary power back right now rather than a true game changer, but he's got space to work. Still only a junior. He's a young prospect. So my overall evaluation for my number 4 tailback, Quinshon Judkins, is a bruising, no-nonsense runner with enough speed to be dangerous, but not enough to be a home run threat. He's best suited for a power or zone scheme where his physicality can shine, but he'll need to develop a little more wiggle to maximize his NFL potential. While his production has dipped since his electric freshman year, he still projects as a 2nd to 3rd round pick. Once again, this is where a lot of running backs are going to go. Not a whole lot of first-round picks. I think we just have one. I think it's just going to be Jeanty in the first round. After that, you're going to see a lot of different rankings. These are mine. This is who I would take to be my NFL running back. The last 3 guys that I mentioned, Hampton, Johnson, Judkins, these are all 2nd to 3rd round backs. It's where they're going to be. Next guy up, number 5. Just like, can we say like 4A and 4B? Because this is the other Ohio State back. This is a senior, and that's part of the reason I ranked him behind Judkins. He's a year older. Travion Henderson, 5'10", 214 pounds, 144 carries, 1,016 yards, did average over 7 yards per carry this season, scored 10 touchdowns on the ground, 27 catches for 284 yards and a touchdown receiving. A little bit better pass catcher than his teammate this past season, Judkins. Henderson is an explosive playmaker. You want to talk about home run speed and big play potential. This is the guy. Excellent vision, excellent patience, allowing him to maximize multiple blocking schemes. Compact build, low center of gravity, which makes him tough to bring down just naturally. He is, by and far, the best receiving back in this class. Natural hands, route running ability. He was the guy they were throwing to. He was a really nice 1-2 punch with Judkins. Actually, these two would complement really well in the NFL. But this is the best receiving back in this class. So we talked about 3 down line or 3 down backs earlier in the program. This is a guy who has that ability. Another guy who can thrive in both zone and gap schemes due to his agility and acceleration. Kind of doesn't matter. When you've got those, you can excel. Weaknesses, though, he wasn't perfect. There was a reason that Judkins got more carries. He does lack elite power at the collision point compared to bigger backs. He's 214 pounds. He runs like he's a $190. Another guy who's dealt with multiple injuries throughout his career. They say the best ability is availability, and there's a question mark there. Durability concern. Likely best suited as part of a committee than rather a true workhorse. And I say that at the beginning of his career. Ohio State was good when he was the main back, but as you can see this past season, they were even better when he was part of a committee. He's not a true 3-down back quite yet. My overall evaluation, Travion Henderson is a dynamic dual threat back who can create explosive plays both as a runner and receiver. While he might not be a 20 carry per game guy, his versatility makes him a valuable weapon in today's NFL. And if he's able to stay healthy, he could be an early impact contributor. with day 2 draft value. So once again, I think this is a second or third round pick. So there's my top 5. I've got 2 more for you, and this is kind of where I think people start to scatter. The consensus seems to be a little bit less of a consensus. So my 6th ranked running back, one of my favorites. He'll be one of my Madden draftees, but I don't think he's a number 1 NFL running back. It'd be a great. I'll tell you right now, this is going to be the Baltimore Ravens' next great running back. I hate to say that, but here he is. Cam Skattebo, senior out of Arizona State. Anybody who watched that game against Texas knows who I'm talking about. 5'11", 215 pounds. He carried the ball 295 times for 1,711 yards last season, just shy of 6 yards per carry. He scored 21 rush touchdowns. He also caught the ball 45 times for 605 yards and 3 touchdowns. And if you watch that Texas game, you saw him throw a touchdown too. So you want to talk about a multi-talented dude. Tough, downhill runner, embraces contact, looks for it, feeds on it. Can't go to bed without a good conk on the head. You know what I mean? Excellent balance, low center of gravity, able to shed tacklers with ease. We're using some scouting euphemisms here, but slippery in traffic, able to force missed tackles despite being a little bit stiffer runner. Very physical mindset as both a runner and a blocker. I talked about the ability to pass protect. This is a willing blocker who loves contact. And finally, surprisingly soft hands for his play style. So he does add value as a receiver. Travion Henderson's a better receiving back. Let me go back. Henderson caught 27 passes this past season. Skattebo caught 45. That's incredible. Weaknesses. Skattebo. Limited long speed. You can see that. Not a breakaway guy. Play speed is below average. He's not going to outrun pursuit angles. Some stiffness and lateral cuts and change of direction. Once again, this is a straight line, downhill, lower your head. This is the throwback 3 yards in a cloud of dust guy. Apologize, had to take a little tea break there. So my overall evaluation, Cam Skattebo, outside of being one of my favorite names, just to say, Skattebo is awesome. This is a throwback style power runner, a guy who blends toughness with just enough finesse to make an impact on the next level, thrives in contact, bounces off tackles, finishes with authority. Well, he does lack that top end speed. His vision, patience, and physicality make him a valuable asset in a committee or short yardage role. Productive pass catcher as well. He brings 3 down versatility. My NFL comp is Tyler Algier. Played a long time, undrafted guy down at the Falcons. Took a lot of carries away from Bijan Robinson. Skattebo I can see going in the 3rd. I have 3rd to 5th. I don't think he falls to the 5th. I should have probably said 3rd to 4th. But then again, I don't know. I put Tyler Algier, who was undrafted. We'll see. I just think he's too talented, and too many people saw him on that big stage to not use a draft pick on this guy. And once again, I can just see him already he's going to wear like number 45 for the Ravens. I just know it. So Skattebo, I have at number 6 in my top 7 running backs. Who's number 7? This is my super sleeper at the moment, and it's not going to be for long. Once the combine comes around, he's going to run well. People are going to remember, and then what they're going to do, and this is why he's the sleeper at the moment, they're going to look at his yards this year and go, what happened to this guy? Why am I drafting this guy? And then they're going to go back to his sophomore year when he was not draft eligible and go, oh. So here we go. His name is Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State. He's a junior, first year draft eligible. 6'1", 211 pounds. 880 yards this year. 13 rushing touchdowns. Caught the ball 29 times. I'm sorry, I got to need more tea. Dealing with a bit of a tickle. It's going around. So I apologize. I'm talking about Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon the second, actually. Ollie Gordon, part Doe. Strengths for Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State. Powerful downhill runner, excellent contact balance, size, strength, breaks tackles, finishes runs with authority. Another power back. Tremendous vision and patience, allows blocks to develop before attacking gaps. Patient runner. Reliable pass catcher. Something I read, and then I went back and watched. Wide catch radius. This guy has long arms for the position, and his quarterback, like, it must have been something they saw in practice. It was kind of one of those, hey, just throw it high or throw it wide. Ollie's going to bring it in. He has this like go-go gadget, just snag and pull into his body. Like I said, only 29 receptions, so they didn't really overload that part of his game last year, but he can do it, which adds value on third downs. Weaknesses, bit of an upright runner, limits his ability to play with natural leverage. You want him to get a little bit lower, but he is so powerful. I think that's just the way he's always carried it. He does lack elite agility, lateral agility, short area burst to consistently create on his own. This is a guy who's going to pick up the yards that are blocked for him. Not a super explosive runner. Does take him some time to reach his top end speed, so he's going to be less effective against stacked fronts. And the biggest weakness is going to be the significant drop in production from 2023 to 2024. 880 yards this season, but as a sophomore, you ready for this? 1,732 yards, averaged 6.1 yards per carry, and scored 21 touchdowns. Why did he drop 900 yards? Why did he go to half of his production as a junior as he was as a sophomore? Was there an injury that we weren't aware of? Was it one of a nagging hamstring that it's not bad enough to sit him, but he's not going to play at his full potential? I don't know. That's what the offseason is for. The Senior Bowl was big for him. The Combine's going to be big. His pro day is going to be big. Interviews are going to be big. But here's my overall evaluation, and this is why I love this guy. Doak Walker Award winner, best running back of the country, and a unanimous All-American, both in 2023 when he was a sophomore. Ollie is a classic bruising back who excels when running downhill with a full head of steam. While he doesn't have that breakaway speed or elite elusiveness, his size and physicality make him a strong short yardage and early down option. His best fit is a gap-heavy rushing attack as a rotational back with starter potential. Right now, I have him outside of the top 100, but I still project him to go between round 3 and 5. So this is another one. Is he going to be ahead of Scadaboo, maybe right behind Scadaboo? Sometimes you get running back taken and then you see a run on him. I don't know. It's going to happen between 3, 4, and 5 for Ollie Gordon. He did. He had a great Senior Bowl. He looked good in the game, especially in that second half. They kind of, when Ollie was in, and they play everybody, but it seemed to be when it was an Ollie drive, he was the lead back for that drive. It was just give him the ball, just keep feeding him. So that tells you what the coaches think of him on the sideline after a week of practice. So those are my top 7. Let's go back. Jeanty, Hampton, Johnson, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, Cam Scadaboo, and Ollie Gordon II are my top 7 running backs in this class. So who needs a running back in this class? Picked a couple. There are a couple teams that I think are a running back away from an elite offense. So who are going to be taking these running backs? Here's the 3 I came up with who are definitely going to be drafting at some point a running back this year. Cincinnati Bengals. Losing Joe Mixon made a difference, didn't it? They need a guy who can maximize light boxes created by Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins if he stays. Chase Brown and Zach Moss barely combined for 1,200 yards last year, so a high-level running back could make life easier for Burrow and give this offense a much-needed second gear. How about another team that could use a running back? The Dallas Cowboys. Their run game has been inconsistent, to put it nicely. Rico Dowdle's a nice chess piece to keep on the roster, but if they truly want to ease Dak Prescott's burden, grabbing a legitimate workhorse for the Schottenheimer offense would make the Cowboys great again. And finally, might get some pushback, the Buffalo Bills. Look, James Cook has been solid, but the Bills still don't have a true tone setter in the backfield. I'm certain Joe Brady would prefer a ground game that doesn't rely on Josh Allen taking hits, and a late first-round pick might keep them in contention for their second favorite running back in the class. I think by the time they pick at 29, 30, Jeanty will be gone. Do they get Kaleb Johnson? Maybe Omarion Hampton? Do they like one of the Ohio State guys best? Could get interesting at the end of that first round. They might be a team that could trade up, use some assets, trade the future for now. The window is now, and they're a team that could go up and get Jeanty. Or do they move back a couple of picks, gather some extra draft pieces, and like I said, Johnson, Hampton, great fit, both in Buffalo. So those are my top three. Other teams I expect to target a running back in 2025, the Cleveland Browns. Life after Nick Chubb. The New England Patriots. Lots of solid, nothing special in that running back room up in New England. How about the Oakland Raiders? Alexander Mattison was the leading rusher with 420 yards last year. Need an upgrade. How about the Chicago Bears? Head coach Ben Johnson to pair someone with DeAndre Swift. Had a nice season, but Swift is he's not a 25 carry a game guy. How about the Chargers? Coach Harbaugh want to supplement, maybe upgrade from J.K. Dobbins and Gus Johnson, a couple of guys who are good when healthy, but both guys missed some time. How about the Vikings? Aaron Jones is a little bit injury prone. Cam Akers, what is he anymore? And finally, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Could they be moving on from Najee? Jalen Warren, more of a complimentary back, right? Also, when I put in here, and this is bolded, could they do the Arthur Smith special? Do they maybe trade up and go after a Jeanty? I don't know. I can see a scenario where they just say, hey, it doesn't matter who we have at quarterback. We're just going to hand it off anyway. I can see it happening. So that's it. That's a wrap on today's episode of the Draft Podcast. Hopefully, you've got a better feel for this year's running back class. Who's got the juice? Who's built for the 3-down role? Which teams might talk themselves into a first-round pick they hope not to regret? I'll leave you with this. Don't forget about the undrafted guys, because every year, some overlooked back sneaks onto a roster, works his way up from special teams, and suddenly he's forced into action in week 7 because the starter pulled a hamstring jogging back to the huddle. Don't sleep on those mid to late round backs either. History tells us they matter just as much as the early picks. Now, I want to hear from you. Who's a running back prospect that you love that I didn't mention? Who's your sleeper? Who's overrated? Hit me up on Twitter at RufusP88. It's down here in the corner. And let's talk ball. Next week, I'm going to switch gears. We're going to go to the defensive side of the ball. I haven't decided which position group yet. I kind of want to see how all the DBs, the edge rushers, the linebackers run at the combine. So maybe I'll go interior defensive line. I don't know. That's a really deep class. It's a lot to go through. We'll see. I guess tune in and find out what I decide, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Thanks again for listening to the Draft Podcast. I'm Paul Adamczak, and I'll see y'all Monday morning on Flagship City Sports Talk, 9 a.m. on 105.9 FM and TalkErie.com.